Well, ladies and gentlemen, our next knowledge seminar is presented by Sports 18 and Geo Cinema. We're having a conversation where we are talking about the changing expectations from a media client leader. What are the true challenges that one does face when you are trying to get there? So please, let's welcome our esteemed panelists onto our stage. Put your hands together. Let's welcome Mr. Ajay Gupte, CEO, Wavemaker, South Asia. Also joined by Anita Kotwani, the CEO of Media South Asia at Dentsu. We also have with us for this conversation Tanmay Mohanty, CEO at Publicis Media Services India. And we also have Vaishali Verma, the CEO of Initiative India. Thank you. That's our panelists. And let's now welcome our moderator for this session. Let's welcome Vikram Sakuja, partner and group CEO at Media and OOH Madison Communications.
How many people in the audience are from an agency? Raise your hands, please. How many of you actually interface with clients? Okay, so we've got about 25% of the audience who are agency, and how many of them from media owners? And clients? So we have some smattering of clients. Excellent. Okay, a very good morning to everybody, and a lovely, lovely morning to our wonderful panel. Today, we are actually going to be talking about what I think in the media agency world, or for that matter, any agency world, is a pretty important topic, which is of the client leader. If we are all sort of existing to provide client delight, there's probably this one person who actually puts a team together or holds a team together, actually providing that delight. That game has changed quite a lot from the time when we started advertising, media, and media, of course, now has become through the funnel. There's branding, performance. There's not only just advertising placement, but also social media and actually managing sales and a whole lot of other things. And all of this is on the slender shoulders of a client leader. So in a true saas bhi kabhi bahut hi moment, we've got guys, you've got a collection of SaaSes who are now CEOs, who were the Bahus at one time when they were actually running client teams. So we have Anita, of course. Actually, Anita and Ajay, I would still err on the side of calling the planners who really became client leaders and are now CEOs. Vaishali, I would say, is maybe more of a planner, buyer, and then moving into a CEO. And Tanmay has been a strategist. He's been a digital domain expert through his client leadership thing, and now a CEO. So we've got a fantastic panel. Want to get into them to find out what exactly the entire client leadership domain is. So let's start with you, Ajay. Let's warming up. How do you describe what you do in a media agency to your mother?
I help her decide on the brands that are going to solve her requirements in the best possible way.
Okay, great. So speaketh the man who won the Agency of the Year last night. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir.
Anita, now let's go to, okay, Vaishali, how has this changed over the years? How has this entire media agency game of ours changed over the years?
Oh, that's like a gear shift. Gear shift from different people playing different roles in an agency where, you know, old age times, or I would say 20 years back, we were very focused on the top end matrix, which was awareness, etc. And then you had certain kind of people doing that, and then you have performance and middle funnel, you have certain people doing that. And however, now it's all kind of moving towards one person trying to manage the show.
And the show, what is the width or the domain of the show?
So it is challenging because you need to also prep, and you need to also kind of, get that person, which is the client lead or the business head, which is, the key spoke for the agency. In terms of the agency business changing, it is evolved and it is very, very dramatically different than what it was 20 years back.
Okay, let's, for the purpose of this discussion, what is the nomenclature that we should call this client lead? Is it a client lead? Is it a client guardian? Is it a business director? Is it a agency Spock?
We call them integrated client leaders,
You call them?
ICLs.
Integrated client leads.
Yeah, we call
Okay.
them integrated client leads, and we look at them beyond media. So we are really not saying if you're sitting in a media agency today, are you only doing the media part of it? I think at dentsu, the way we are structured, we've like integrated between creative media and CXM. So for us, when we look at the client leader, and if I look at it, let's say the role me or my team plays in, it cuts across all the three verticals. So then how do you run a business which understands creative, it understands media, and customer experience management? So,
Okay,
the trinity that we are
integrated,
looking at.
integrated client lead. We'll just quickly, for nomenclature purposes, just go around the panel very quickly. Vaishali, what do you call them?
We call them business heads.
Business heads.
Yeah.
Tanmay?
Yeah, business side.
Business heads. And Ajay?
What's in a name? A rose is a rose.
Sorry?
What's in a name? A rose is a rose. I think, whatever you call them, I think they are the people who ensure that the client gets the best return for the buck he spends.
So,
We
no,
call them client leads, but
You
I
call them
think
hey you.
there's no real thing about the name.
okay. So, for the purpose of this, should we call them, for the rest of the 38 minutes, can we call them what? Business directors, client leads? Client leads?
Client leads is good, I think.
So let's stick with client leads. Great. Tanmay, what are the key deliverables of a client leader today? Vaishali opened it up a little bit by saying that it's now become a little bit wider. Anita said even more integrated, and she talked, apart from media, she talked creative experience. How would you sort of call the deliverables of a client lead?
Two parts actually how we look at it. The first part is it's looked as a profit center. It's looked as a profit center. Client is when you talk about a client lead, it officially becomes a profit center for you. Profit center, where you think of client's revenue versus the team that you put on that, who can manage that type of P&L. It's a small P&L for us. Agree. The second part we looked at is that what he can drive from a client's requirement point of view. So whether client is looking for solving certain problems, can that person bring in that or bring in those talent who can solve for the problem? So these are the two ways we look at what we call client leads.
The team and solving of a problem. So what do you think are the deliverables of a client lead?
So I think you need to start off with being client obsessed. If I'm able to understand his business as well as he understands it, then the value that I'm able to add back to his business is tremendous. So if he's a CMO on that side, can I know enough of his business as much as he does? So I'm able to partner him a lot better. That's the first part that we look at. So how are we client obsessed? How we immerse ourselves into their businesses and understand their challenges? Because when they need to drive growth, I need to understand the areas in which they are having issues, concerns, challenges, and then how do I address them with retrofitting solutions that fit in from our side. So the match of that is what is becoming very, very integral.
Any further adds to that or different points of view?
A bit, just to add on what Anita said, of course, key relationship holder and owners to keep the client happy. So end of the day, whatever the objectives are or whatever the client is seeking, he or she could tap into the right specialization unit within the agency, kind of escalate it at the right time and ensure that the client is happy is, I would say, from a one line.
Client obsession, understanding their challenges, keeping them happy, whatever that means. And does this person need to be, Ajay, does this person need to be a Spock, the single point of contact for the client?
Yeah, I mean, just first to add on what Anita and Vaishali were saying. While so much has changed, I think some basics remain the same. The first is understanding the consumer journey, and understanding what's working for the consumer. And second is being, like Anita said, client obsessed. If a client leader is obsessed about success for a client and obsessed about understanding the consumer better, he will find a solution. So while things have changed, I think this remains a constant. And anyone with these two basic capabilities or criteria will succeed, whichever generation we're talking about, is the simple way that I look at it. The second part to this really is about change and transformation. Change is a constant. It has been changing since forever. When I joined, my client obsession was about sitting on the ground with a pencil and a calculator, calculating spots on dart, as basic as that. To today, a client leader needing to understand the data journey of the consumer, understanding how the consumer interacts with the various media forms, understanding what options are available, understanding the data that is available on the client side, because there is so much more information available today. So I think it's a regular transformation that is required. As long as the two basic criteria of consumer and client obsession are there, the client leader will transform and gain the skills required to help the client succeed.
It's a partnership you are looking at. See, what is happening is that most of the CMO's lifespan is like 2 years. And that I see in the industry also. Most of the client leaders and the new accounts that come in probably is a couple of years. So it is pretty much a personal touch between working as a partner rather than thinking as a client lead. The moment you think of a partner in making sure that clients grow, that is how we grow, versus client gave us a brief and I have to make sure that it delivers, are two different things and completely different mindset for us. What I see is that people who have been successful in that role has been more of a partner to client, partner to their problem, understanding client's problem and bringing it back to see that what's the best possible solution that I can get from internally to solve for that problem, rather than thinking that I'm a planner, I'm a buyer, or I'm a digital guy, I can solve it this my way. Those people have been how we see that success.
Okay, so look, we are getting words like whatever, client obsession, we are getting the entire pieces of being a partner, we are getting the aspect of managing just about the entire ecosystem and bringing solutions to them. Now, what is the prerequisite for a client leader? Is it, now this without necessarily getting into politically correct answers, do you find that people with a planning background make for better client leaders, buying backgrounds? What about digital? Because we also hear that digital are great on technique, but not so strong on branding. Let's just explore the prerequisites for an effective client leader, and does it change on the nature of the client? Performance heavy client versus branding heavy client. Vaishali, would you like to take the first stab at it?
Sure. So Vikram, in my opinion, it definitely changes basis the client and the category of the client we are working for. If it's, for example, if it is a very tech-led or a startup who looks for top to bottom, we would want a digital background kind of a planning person to be the business head. And that's what we try and do, because it's like master of all, and it's very difficult to find that, the person who possesses all of it. So I think the smarter way to do is identify what the nature of the business is, and hence kind of try and look for those kind of skill. A CPG might require a very hardcore planning, who's worked on, on CPG kind of an experience from a offline and some bit of digital. So it would vary basis the nature of the client and the category.
How do you, maybe, Ajay, can you give it's a work in progress. We all want to become perfect integrated. We want to be in a situation where we are talking video, text, image, experience, so on and so forth, audio, and regardless of whether it's analog or digital. That's what you all want to be in. A planner should be able to do that. But it's WIP. Right now, we are not in the situation where everybody's a master of both. So how do you balance the two for a client leader at this point in time? So where they can they may not be the expert, but they need to know enough so as to bring in the experts. How do you do that?
Yeah, Vikram, I always believe that the most important thing is attitude. The guy needs to have, a good client leader needs to have the right attitude of those two factors, which is understanding the consumer and client obsession. Right? Once he's got that, I think anyone can be a client leader.
Three attitudes have come out for the record: obsession, the selling, and
the understanding of the consumer journey and client obsession. I think these two things from an attitude perspective are extremely important, and anyone, wherever they're coming from, can be a client leader. Now, we are all different. We all come with different capabilities and backgrounds. And typically, this challenge is observed is that a digital guy is very good at his craft, but not very good at understanding the consumer or understanding what the client's strategic needs are. On the other hand, the conventional planner is a little better at understanding consumer, understanding client challenges, putting that in a structure. So there are different capabilities, but as long as the attitude is right, you have a client leader who's got the right attitude. He may have an area of weakness, and he gets a number two or someone in the team who can support him in that area of weakness. Because finally, whichever level of sophistication a client is at, if a client is very basic, needs good rates, you need the capability within the team to deliver that basic capability, but you also need to take the client ahead on that journey, for which you need the higher end skills. So a team coming together with various skills is important because we are all different. However, the client leader is the one with the client attitude, with the attitude to make the client, to want to make the client win.
Excellent. If we just extend this discussion that we just had for the benefit of everybody sitting here to the, say, buyers or people who are digital specialists or maybe traditional planners, if they still call themselves that, what is the one advice that you would give them? You've talked about attitude, but Anita, what is the one advice that you'd give them that if you want to become a client leader of a top account, what is the one thing that you should do in your career at this point in time which can get you there? Assume they are a domain specialist.
I think always on learning, Vikram. Yes. Always on learning. I think the fact that if you're not going to keep yourself upskilling your skill set for the new age ecosystem changes that are happening. And I'll give my example. If today we are talking AI, ML, if we don't understand what prompt engineering does for you, and hence you're able to have those conversations to the client. So when I look at an integrated client leader who's going to have a conversation at a larger level, a business conversation with the client, he is supported by an integrated strategist who again today has got enough on his plate because he has to work across a content strategy, a media strategy, a business strategy, a social strategy, a content strategy. Come to the other side, you have an integrated planner. He today has to do traditional planning, digital planning, full funnel marketing, right? So right up from branding to performance, he is up. So when you look at this integration story, there's integration of the client leader to understand the client's businesses. There is an integration strategist who's understanding the larger solutioning that we are doing. And there is a bunch of integrated planners who really need to upskill. Now, when you look at this trinity and you're trying to build your larger organization, and how will this get built? This is only going to get built when you have a strong learning and development agenda within your organization. If the skill set is not getting upgraded at the pace with which the industry is moving, then you're going to fall back. And that is the focus that we like to ensure that the talent is getting upskilled.
Tanmay, your secret sauce, please share your insights into if a client lead has to build a good team, what are the 3 things they should and should not do? And I'd love to get this perspective from everyone because collaboration, team building and all is of course key.
The first question is that you are looking for a leader who has empathy. Without empathy, because see, and Ajay was saying the right thing, your obsession about client comes from obsessing about client's problem, and that drives from the empathy the leader should have for that account. Agree? And that empathy should reflect on what is expected from the client versus what the team can deliver. The most of the mismanagement happens is that client wants everything. Client has a KPI to pay you lesser all the time because that's the KPI. Same time, your KPI is to also to drive profit inside your organization and to keep your team because that's what you deliver. So they're never going to match. The bigger problem is that that leader having empathy to understand both sides and build a team who can support him to deliver that. For that, I personally think that it's unfair now in this situation to think of one client leader, because it's pretty complex. Let's just think about media. Probably 12 different things goes at any given time at a client at scale. And you expecting that person to drive everything is never going to be. You will have specialists, you will have generalists, and you will have salespeople who can sell those things that these people come up with as a solution. So creating a team that works between generalist and specialist is the key of the leader that you choose to drive. But the responsibility or the KPI stays as more democratized as possible. That's the way to build that team.
Anita, what's been your secret sauce for the team to feel that the client leaders got their back?
So, Vikram, in the way we try to work out is, there has to be disciplined leadership first in terms of delivery to the client. So if you've pulled out certain processes and systems on how you're going to service a client, tendency of that happening, saying the client is going to be unhappy, etc., first gets limited, because you've set it up, you've told him what he's going to expect in a given month. Whatever are the deliverables, it's called out. So there is a tracker that's getting maintained saying n number of things done, have they got done, not done. So there's a review that happens. Then there are some obviously relationship building that Ajay talked about. Stakeholder management becomes very important. If at an organization level, right up from, let's say when I lead the overall practice, or my respective CEOs and the client leads under them, if there is a disciplined way of how the servicing is going to happen, and that each one is playing their part in meeting up and building that rapport relationship. So there is a focus on trying to build that rapport with the client. I think the way we've tried to, and I won't say we're extremely 100% successful, but we've used the disciplines of execution very interestingly. We've said there's a goal on the client that we want to work on. What is going to be the lag and lead measure? It's something that I've lived with anywhere where I've worked across all the organizations. We've put a scorecard saying, are we moving in that right direction? And that accountability starts with us. So I have to decide that I'm going to meet a particular client that often. Automatically, my team below will continue to do that. So I think disciplined leadership, at least that's the style that I've used, and I've tried to inculcate it in as much of the people within our organization. It's a slow process, but it's happening in the right way.
Okay. And Vaishali, just related but slightly separate, there's a slight trend coming of clients, I won't use the word disintermediating, but there are certain products which they are right now taking away from the agency and working directly either with SaaS product owners or with just they're taking in-house also more strategic things. Since we want it all, what is it that you do to make sure that these continue to see value? Or what should a client leader do to make sure that less business gets out of the agency and they feel that they're better off getting that stuff done with the agency rather than separately?
Yeah, I think it again starts with how intrinsic and how immersed the client lead is also on the business of whichever category or whichever business he's working on, so that we kind of catch something which is early and there's nothing which we can't take it up with the client or we can't have a conversation on. But most of the time, sometimes we are caught unaware, right? It has happened and then you get to know later. So I think it's extremely important that the client lead is immersed completely, has a good chemistry, relationship, builds trust, and which I think Ajay talked about trust, which is extremely important, so that even if the business is kind of going out somewhere, it is something which we were not able to deliver, so that the agency is well aware that it's outside their capability of delivering it, and hence the business is going out. Otherwise, I think we should try and ensure that we are immersed as much so that we know what's happening at the client's end as well.
Most of the client leads would be now millennials. Most of the teams that they're dealing with are probably Gen Z. Gen Zs arguably are a slightly different have different expectations. They seem to be more interested in knowing what is the end result, and then I'll do it in, now don't stress me out by saying that I have to come at 9 in the morning and go at 9 at night. I will choose my own time. I will do basically, you know what I'm talking about. They have a certain expectation, which probably we guys didn't. We didn't mind acting like slaves out here. They will definitely not agree to that. What is the tips that you can give a client leader on managing Gen Zs?
Yeah, Gen Zs, you're absolutely right. You know, some basic motivators are very different, and I think a work-life balance, a very different approach to work compared to what we were accustomed to as we grew up. But while that is said, I think some other basics remain the same, which is the need to be recognized, the need to be celebrated, the need to be constantly learning and upskilling. I think these basics remain the same. So as long as a client lead can bring together a team of diverse capabilities, recognize them, celebrate them, and show them that they are learning, and once they start winning and once they start seeing success, I think people get that much more encouraged to be part of the team. A simple analogy, in a way, is the cricket team, right? The best batsman or the best bowler or the best wicketkeeper needn't be the captain, the best captain. Whereas the captain who brings all of these together shows them that together we win. And once they know that they win together, everyone puts 150%. So I think it's quite similar.
Great. Tanmay?
With the generation that comes in as the management trainee is probably their ability to think that they can be employed. You are leaving them employable. It's not that they are stuck to media planning, digital or commerce. They want to do everything and everything all the time. So I think what we learned is that last 2-3 years is that how do you structure your training? How do you structure your recognition program? How do you structure your specifically the KPIs for those people is extremely important, because how they feel that I can move from this job to that job and I can be a YouTube influencer tomorrow, that basically says that if the organization doesn't put that effort for them to be valued or giving them something in return, they are not going to stick through. And that's how a lot of the programs and designs now happens that way.
Show them the value, show them how through the KPIs they can actually grow. Vaishali?
I think it's a big challenge. I'll be extremely honest here. I think I have failed many times in kind of retaining the younger talent. And what I figured out is they're so restless. They don't believe in a sequential learning process. One way which now we are trying is to kind of take them along from the very beginning, rather than kind of deploying work to them, right? We have this habit of deploying work and telling them to do this, but kind of taking them along, explaining them how they are part of this entire process, etc., is kind of seeing some result so that they feel that they are kind of contributing. And as Ajay said, they are valuable, and you celebrating that but it is a challenge. At least from my point of view, it's a challenge.
Anita?
No, I like the fact that they are vocal enough into saying we want a work-life balance. So I really appreciate that. We never did it. We slogged 20 hours a night, etc. in our younger days when we were working. So I respect the fact that they want a work-life balance. I think what they also tell us is give us a lot more than what you conventionally want to give us. So put us into different squads, give us projects to work on, let us do different thinking, pull us in front of other senior leaders whom we can work in. I think I get motivated with a lot of that. So when you mix that young talent with few senior leaders and you see them shine, the point that Ajay made, the way you profile them, the way you give them the opportunity, you give them the pedestal to come and present to senior leadership, the entire excitement then of that young generation is amazing. So I think that's really, really great.
We started off talking about a very crazy environment that media agencies are working in with branding, performance, digital, whatever, traditional, if you want to call it that way, through the funnel, all that jazz. But if a client leader has to be the one person managing it all, I was struck by how little we actually needed to talk about the product part. It seems to be all those parts about managing a client, managing your team, setting in place certain processes. And of course, having the right attitudes, whether it's the entire client obsession, having the right kind of processes in terms of KPIs and just the way that we need to work, constantly telling your team what's in it for them and actually trying to help them grow. And to some extent, we picked up some organizational as well as some on-the-job kind of interventions to make them more capable to do the entire job. So I hope it was useful for everybody. It was for me. Please join me in thanking our wonderful panel. Thank you all.